Now, budgeting, often misunderstood as a restrictive practice, but financial experts say it's actually a path to greater freedom and control. To talk us through it, Brodie Chalwell joins us from Canaccord Genuity. Brodie, welcome to Ausbiz. Thanks for joining us. Budgeting, well, it does have that connotation, doesn't it, where you've got to pull back your spending, be thrifty. How do you view it, though?
Yeah, thanks very much for having me on. And you're exactly right. It's always been seen as a very restrictive tool, but it is the opposite. It creates freedom and it allows us to have that guilt-free spending if it's implemented correctly. So it does need to be viewed differently, not in a boring, restrictive way, but as a tool to give you control over your money. We need to think of it as a game plan for your finances, helping you stress less and actually enjoy spending money without guilt. You've got to start with knowing your numbers. So first things first, work how much you're working with. That means knowing your disposable income, what's left after taxes and deductions. Some people like to budget on that pay cycle, whether it's fortnightly. Setting a 2-week budget can help you stay on track. If you're paid monthly, some people prefer to do this even if they're not paid monthly because it's when the majority of their bills come out. Both methods work. Weekly can work. If you just need to figure out what's right for you. From there, you need to analyse your spending. So what I typically do is I recommend people to go through 3 to 4 months of banking statements and to be able to see exactly where their money's going. And you need to be honest with yourself as well, because some of the results can be quite alarming. One that we see that isn't too uncommon is, for example, people spending, $200 a month on coffee. And the purpose of budgeting isn't to say this is something that needs to be cut out altogether. It's just to be aware and to be able to implement practices to say maybe could I go to a cafe 3 times a week as opposed to all 7, and shaving money that way. Another good idea where we see people shave back a few dollars is transport. If somebody lives within 10 to 20 kilometres of work, can they look at potentially cycling into work a couple of days a week? And it does need to be astronomical amounts. Even if we shave $100 a week from unnecessary spending, it can have a huge impact. And that's where the implementation of a financial plan can come into place.
Yep.
So, if we look at that from a compounding perspective, if you had that $100 per week put into an ETF returning 8% annually, you could have over $250,000 in 20 years. And that's money you could use to retire earlier, travel more, generate income, buy your dream home. Some people like to put this money towards mortgage repayments. And in a more specific example, if we did have a mortgage, say that was $700,000 over a 30-year term at a 5% interest rate over the average of the term of the loan, those $100 per week extra repayments can actually reduce the lifetime of the loan from 30 to about 24 years. So just over 6 years shaved off the loan, and also you're also saving money there on the interest repayments. It's not about limiting yourself. It's actually about building the life you want and putting that all into action.
All right. So, Brodie, what you're saying essentially is not necessarily about saving money. It's also about making money. So how do you put that into action?
Yeah, that's right. So now that we know where money is going, you need to take control of where that is going. And there's really good apps and things online now to help you track your spending. Like there's a Buddy app and Money Smart, it's expense tracker. And like I said, from there, that surplus income that you're now getting, you need to figure out where you're going to direct that. So as I said, some people who are, I guess, a bit more risk averse might want to put that in a high interest cash savings account or pay it off their mortgage. And for people that are willing to implement that into the ASX, that's where the sort of exponential growth comes in, where we can get it into an ETF, an index tracking ETF, which typically will return 8 to 10% over the long term, reinvesting dividends and just watching that compounding. So it's putting small habits into place, which can then have astronomical effects in the future. It may seem like a very small amount to start with, but the compounding effect over the long term, it can have a great effect.
All right. Yeah. So you're saying essentially budgeting, you're trying to limit that financial stress, create more financial freedom. I guess that's easier if you're single. What if you're in a relationship and perhaps you're both sort of pooling your resources, and there may be some inequality there where perhaps one person earns more than the other, or maybe you do have separate bank accounts. How do you make that work?
Yeah, correct. And it is a problem that we see often. It is one that's hard to navigate. it's something that does need to be addressed with people, and it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all approach. It's going to be something that it's an important discussion to have. So typically one thing that we have found has been very effective is a feeder account. So say, for example, like you said, if there's a couple who don't necessarily want to pull all of their money together and have a complete joint finance, a lot of people like to implement a joint feeder account where their pays can go into this one bank account, and all their joint expenses and all their joint investments or savings, if that's the way they want to implement it, can come out of this feeder account, and then perhaps even allocating a portion to pay each individual account. So that way you can still have that guilt-free spending. And there's also that added implement there. If you are joining finances as a couple, you can have that guilt in terms of the unnecessary spending of wanting to go have a game of golf or buy that pair of shoes you've always wanted, but always having in the back of your mind that you don't want to let your partner down or ask for their permission. So that's a great way that we find people to implement that sort of thing, is to have that feeder account and then pay a couple of $100 a month, $500 a month, say, if that's within the budget, to each of those individual accounts, and allow that to be that guilt-free spending money that you don't need to ask or feel guilty about.